Hi guys, we're here with Ron from Viking, the thrash metal band from Los Angeles. So how are you doing, Ron, on this Saturday evening?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me what's happening in the Viking camp so recently?
Well, right now we're booking a short, probably a 2 week tour, and going down to Texas, kind of mid-America, down to Texas and back up where I'm based in Indiana. We're going to be co-headlining with a band that we'll make that announcement as soon as everything's on paper. But yeah, it'll be a cool announcement. We actually had some shows scheduled for October. Unfortunately, I ended up having a torn rotator cuff and torn bicep, and had to put me back together. So had surgery and now in physical therapy to get back to 100%. The good news is that I'm playing guitar every day, so that's I'm healed to that point.
Yeah, well, that sucks, but hopefully, you'll recover fully and you get back on the stage, playing for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. All the prognosis looks good.
Yeah. So this year, I want to say April, maybe a little earlier, you released a new album.
March.
Oh, March. Okay.
4th. The day of the year that forms a sentence.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
March 4th. We thought it was a good day to release the record on.
Yeah, that's cool though. So how is I remember I think I heard some clips. I think back in 2013, I believe 2014. What delayed the album?
What didn't delay the album? Yeah, there was. Well, first off, we recorded Gene's stuff first because we couldn't get Gonzo out here to do bass tracks for I think it was probably 5 months afterwards, just because of everybody's schedules. And then it became a schedule thing, and at one point in the process, my mom passed away, and that took a big chunk of my life and time. And then ultimately it was a computer, a number of computer things, but we had one of the higher up guys from Avid, the Pro Tools guys, here at the studio for almost a full day, and finally figured out what in the world was going on. And right after that happened, the album was done very quickly.
Yeah, the computer, right? It's just things can go wrong. I've heard some stories about stuff, just going wrong with the computer. The file gets corrupted and just messes up everything.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's positives and negatives with old studios and the new digital stuff, but yeah, I mean, in the old days when it was on 2-inch tape, we just went in and, you were really well rehearsed and you knocked out whatever it was you were going to record, and if it sounded bad, you played it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, nowadays we have the ability to torture all the life out of all the music, and but coming with it comes the difficulty of if something crashes and you don't have backup, you're toast, you're done.
Yeah. How are the fans enjoying? How's been the fan response? So far, it looks pretty good. What I've seen, at least.
It's I've been really happy to be able to meet fans as we've done these tours and met guys that some of them are newer fans and some of them are like they've been fans for 30 years now, and hearing their reaction, and it's funny because everybody's always got a favorite Viking record. It's either Man of Straw or Do or Die, but it's not both because they're very different records.
Mm-hmm.
And so like somebody typically doesn't tell me, oh, I hated that one record, but I like the other one. But usually they say, oh man, this is by far my favorite. And the encouraging thing that I've heard from fans about this record is they're like, it sounds like a Viking record, like whichever thing they were into, like they liked where Viking was going, and this was the natural progression, and so I've been super encouraged by that. Just that the fan response has been not only that they like the record, but that confirming that it is, even after all this time, a Viking record, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I like both albums personally. I think they're both great, and when I heard it, obviously it's Viking, it definitely has the Viking sound. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Cool.
So obviously, for people who don't know, I should say, you have Michael Gonzales of Dark Angel playing bass, and obviously you said
Yeah.
Gene Hoglan. How did you get Michael to become pretty much a full time member of Viking? As long as he's not doing Dark Angel, a permanent member, I should say, of
Right.
Viking.
Right. Well, at the time, Dark Angel had no hope of reforming, and Mike actually. Long story short, Gene was in the studio, and Mike, out of just random, because they've stayed friends, texted Gene and said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And Gene looked over at me and goes, "You'll never believe who just texted me." I'm like, "Who?" And he said, "Gonz." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Gonz in 25 years. That's crazy." And so Gene texted back and said, "Dude, you'll never guess where I am right now." And Gonz's like, "What?" And Gene typed, "I'm recording the new Viking album." And like Gonz, his first thing was, "Who do they have playing bass? Do they need a bass player?" So it's, yeah, Gonz has always been a Viking fan, as just as the guys in Dark Angel loved Viking, and the guys in Viking loved Dark Angel. So it's just it just worked. We felt like family, and fell in right away. It was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So you're talking a little bit, to go back a little bit, you're talking about the tour you recently did. That was mostly just East Coast, correct?
Yeah, that was East Coast, and I think we got as far west as Milwaukee, probably. Yeah, I don't have the map in front of me, but I think that's about as far west in the U.S. as we got with Milwaukee.
Yeah. Well, is there any plans for maybe next year? Obviously, if you can play West Coast dates and California dates, that would be pretty cool.
Yes, we actually had planned on the April run being West Coast, and actually for October we had to turn down some stuff that would have been really, really awesome for the fans and for us. So we're hoping to do at least that one run to the West Coast, but there's some other stuff in the works as well. So we're hoping that next year is our West Coast return, which I think would be our 30-year anniversary. Wow.
That's pretty cool. Obviously, you guys are originally from the Southern California area, correct?
Right.
That'd be really cool. Obviously, LA always gets a good, bands get a good response, especially thrash metal bands. And especially if you're an older thrash metal band, you get really good response in LA for sure. In Southern California in general, I would say. So.
Yeah, Southern California was always great to us. It was a great place to be and to be from. It's just a good era.
Yeah, definitely. During the tour, what new songs did you guys play that got like the best response in your opinion?
Well, I'll tell you, we had to replace our guitar player halfway through the last tour because he had to fly home and have a baby, and so we did not do almost any new songs. Man, I'm trying to think now because that was a few months ago. I know when we had to fly Sean into Atlanta, and Sean was our replacement guitar player that picked up in the middle of the tour. He knew the Do or Die and Man Straw albums backwards and forwards, but he did not know the new record, and so we didn't play. I don't think the second half of the tour we played anything. I know live we've done, off the new record, we've done Brundlefly, or By the Brundlefly, we've done 902 on Play 182, we've done Blood Eagle. Not a whole lot of the new record has been played live yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think once you guys do another tour, I think people would definitely enjoy hearing the new stuff as well as the old stuff, so.
Yeah, I'm always torn about that. When you go to see a band that you liked years ago, do you want to hear their new stuff? Like, if I go to see Maiden, am I thinking, man, I want to hear every single Iron Maiden single, everything that I expect to hear. I want to hear Flight of Icarus, A Number of the Beast, and Run to the Hills, I want to hear all these songs. I don't care about their new records, but then there's other fans that are like all over the new stuff. So it's a hard decision for a band to make, that a band that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
What percentage of new stuff do you put in there? Because every new song you're putting in, you're taking out an old one.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's a balance issue it can be at
Right.
times. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, so we'll just look forward to hearing from fans, what they think the strongest stuff on the new record is. It's I'd rather play what they want to hear rather than what's my favorite. I mean, I can listen to me playing my favorite song anytime.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit to the old days a bit. I think I read, I could be wrong. I remember reading that you used to be in punk bands back in the day.
Yeah, I was never into punk. I was always into metal, but my roommate was in a pretty popular Orange County punk band that played. Offspring used to open for them and stuff. It was like back in the early days. So their guitar player went to jail, and so my roommate comes home, and he was the bass player of this band called The Hag, and said, "Man, our bass player, our guitar player just went to jail. Can you, we've got a gig this Friday. Can you cover?" And then I just ended up being in the band until I quit. So, yeah, my first real gigging band was big in the punk scene there, even though I personally was not in the punk scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you grow up listening to? Like, what would be known as like 70s heavy metal, hard heavy rock stuff?
Well, I started with Kiss, like so many other guys my age. Kiss was the first album I got was Kiss Destroyer, and just the heaviness of the riffs, it's like God of Thunder and stuff that was always the stuff I gravitated to. And so, ended up, I was a huge AC/DC fan, and, just listening to all kinds of Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and just the standard stuff that was around. And then the new wave of British heavy metal kind of happened. It was like, so I was hearing Priest and Maiden and Saxon and, bands like this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was always into the heavier, I didn't realize how fast music could get at this point, but I always appreciated the heaviness of it.
Yeah. So when did you start like realizing this this thrash thing that will later become the beast that it is now?
I guess the first thing, I was reading Kerrang! Magazine, and I read a review of Venom's Black Metal, the album, and the guy was describing that song, was Buried Alive, I think it's called,
yeah,
where, he's describing that you can hear the priest saying ashes to ashes, dust to dust, from the inside of the coffin, muffled, and then you're hearing the dirt hitting the coffin, and it's just like it's encapsulating and freaky, and I put down the magazine and went to drive to my import record store, to go buy this record.
Yeah.
And so that was what kind of set me on the path of, man, like metal is way more, like it can be way more extreme than I've been experiencing it, because I was going to LA clubs and stuff. I mean, about as heavy as it got was like Armored Saint and Heretic and bands like that, where it was like, was it the early part of thrash, or was it the extreme edge of hair metal? Who knows? But then that Venom record, and then immediately after I got Slayer's Show No Mercy, and then it was all over.
That's a pretty cool story. So were you involved in like tape trading at all, or not really?
Well, I didn't even know that scene existed until we started playing shows, and our second show, we were opening on a Dark Angel bill, and that was the first time the two bands met, and we became fast friends, and hanging out with Gene. He's like, man, this demo you guys did is awesome. Like, you got to get it into all the hands, all the fanzine. And I'm like, what is a fanzine? It's like I had no clue. Like, I bought heavy metal magazines all the time. Like, from the time I was in like fourth grade, I was buying Circus magazine and reading Kerrang! And things. But here's these fan-produced magazines, and they're reviewing tapes, and they're telling where you can buy these tapes, and it was like, holy cow. And Gene gave me his entire fanzine mailing list and said, take this and send your demo to every one of these magazines. I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I didn't know about any of the fanzines or tape trading or anything like that was going on. I just found on the internet the other day that some tape traders were, they have a recording of one of our shows that I don't have a recording of. I didn't know anybody ever recorded it. So I'm hoping somebody goes, hey, you want to hear what this sounds like? And send it to me.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty crazy how, well, it's cool, but obviously in the internet, you don't have to really do that. But back then, obviously, you gotta do more promotion on the band's part as well. It seems.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I think it's kind of been, there's documentaries like Get Thrashed. There's a few other ones, that always kind of put the glory to the San Francisco thrash scene, metal scene. Which I'm not trying to, no disrespect to San Francisco or anything like that, but LA definitely had its really, really good bands and produced a lot of good ones. Obviously, Viking, Dark Angel, Megadeth, Slayer, Hyrax, and there's probably a few other ones I'm missing. How was the LA scene or fans back in the day?
Well, it changed over the course of time. Originally, when I would go, there was this little club called Radio City, and if it could hold 100 people, I'd be surprised looking back at it. It's a very little dive bar right next door, literally right next door. Attached to it was another little dive bar called the Woodstock, and Woodstock and Radio City had amazing shows. That you'd go and you'd pay $6 and you'd see this lineup of LA metal bands as whatever style. Like you could go and see Rat and Leather Angel and Steeler all on one bill for $6 at this little place. And then so going to see Slayer there and just seeing how the thrash scene was different than that just like heavy metal scene, like the hair metal or the just metal scene. The thrash scene, like this was scarier but cooler. Like just to watch it from the outside, you're like, holy crap, these guys are like moshing like nobody's business. But then everybody's cool, Now over the course of time, it felt like in Southern California, I don't know if it was Nazis or skinheads or punks or like whatever it was, but at some point, like that big camaraderie in the pit turned into like, hey, some guy with shaved head is going to stand in the middle and just punch the hell out of people, And, where you go to see Slayer, I remember seeing Slayer at the Hollywood Palladium, and someone in the audience spit on Tom, and he's like, hey, and I remember going, I thought this was L.A., man. So the scene definitely changed with some bad apples, getting in like that as far as the crowds went. But the shows always seem to be huge.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never heard of that. I was actually going to ask you about that, the whole kind of metal versus punk mythology that you kind of hear, at least, that, sometimes there's issues with people fighting each other, like, in shows, so...
Well, in Viking, James, our bass player, and Matt, our drummer, were very into the punk music scene. Like, James was almost exclusively in the punk music scene other than, like Jethro Tull and stuff. But his stuff and being a high schooler and college-age guy, he was into punk. Matt was equal time split between metal and punk. And so they would go to these shows like GBH and stuff like that, and TSOL, and like all these like major punk shows, and they'd have long hair, and they would get hassled, and I was always worried they'd go to these punk shows and get like stabbed or something, because it's like, oh, these dang hippies, Nowadays, it all just seems to work. Like, I haven't been hassled by anybody for having long hair, and I haven't seen anybody with a shaved head get hassled either. So maybe maybe it's completely different than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. A little bit back, I kind of want to touch. I forgot to on Dark Angel and Viking. You guys probably, I think I saw some flyers. You guys used to play a lot of shows together, correct?
We did. Like I mentioned earlier, that first show we did, the first show we did together was only our second show. And then the next show we did together at the same place, which was the Whiskey A Go Go in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
That second show we played with them was the Darkness Descends album release show. So it was like that was them at just hitting the stride of, you know, like kind of going from the you know, underground cult thing to like, holy crap, this is an album to contend with, you know. And so they were headlining more shows and playing bigger shows and, you know, going out on tour and stuff. And so it was like their launching point was our kind of starting point. So yeah, since we were friends and we played on a lot of the same bills and stuff, it was a very cool time.
That's pretty cool. I'm rooting for a Dark Angel Viking tour. I just want to throw that out there.
I know Mike's totally into it. You know, he'd have to play 2 shows a night, but yeah, he'd be the first on the bus. Yeah, I don't know what Dark Angel's touring plans are. I don't know if they're gonna book a full on multi-day tour, or if they're gonna continue to kind of hit these big festivals. But yeah, we'd be more than willing to do that if yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And back in the day, you know, we were talking a little about tape trading, but were you aware of like the German stuff, like, you know, Sodom, Exhumer, and all that coming out, or not really?
No, I mean, for us, what we were hearing, other than, you know, hearing about these little bands like with their 3-song demos that I would read that were in the same fanzines as us, you know, I heard of those bands. But yeah, I mean, for us, we were exposed to, you know, Anthrax and Testament and Forbidden,
yeah,
you know, that kind of stuff. But as far as stuff coming from Europe, I think we just had really limited knowledge of it. I know everybody in the band loved Artillery. You know, we had a couple of Artillery albums and just thought that was amazing. You know. But yeah, we didn't hear a lot of the stuff from other countries.
Yeah. And I remember reading, if I'm correct, that you weren't too happy about the production on Do or Die. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's too happy with the production on Do or Die. It's terrible. Yeah, I mean, it's atrocious. I wish that I could go back in time and slap my 19-year-old self to not think that I know it all, because I didn't know it all, but I was 19 and I thought I did. Yeah, we just had no clue what we were doing, and we were trying to make sure that the album came in as absolutely cheap as possible, like inexpensive, because we wanted the leftover money to be able to tour with. So we recorded Do or Die very, very cheaply, way below, you know, our album budget, but, you know, it's terrible. Other than the songs, like the songs themselves I love those songs. But I can't think of a single other thing about that record that I'm happy with.
Do you think like remastering it would help, or do you think it would have to be like a whole re-recording just to fix it, production-wise?
If the 2-inch tape existed somewhere, and I don't know if it does, I certainly don't have it. I don't know if Metal Blade ever got the tape, or if they were just given a 1/4 inch or whatever. But if it existed, we could go back and do it, like make it sound clearer at least. But performance-wise, we were amped up with adrenaline. It was crazy. It was so all over the place. So yeah, Matt and I have actually talked several times over you know the last 30 years of how much we would like to just re-record that record. Like, not change anything other than just re-record it with modern, like, microphones and things. Mix it so it sounded clear, and everything else exactly the same. We'd both be a lot happier. Maybe we'll do that in a couple of years.
That'd be interesting for sure. And then your next album, Man of Straw. How do you think, as a songwriter, you changed from Do or Die to Man of Straw during that time?
Let's see. So, Matt actually wrote a couple of the lyrics on Do or Die, and I'm pretty sure I wrote all the lyrics on Man of Straw. And I was getting more into the lyricism of things and the poetry of, like, it wasn't just about, demons spewing forth vile, things from the pit of hell or whatever. It's like that stuff got boring. It was too easy to write. It was boring. It just sounded like everybody else's. So my subjects started changing, and my lyrical writing style definitely changed. But a big part of the songwriting, just music-wise, most of Do or Die was written before we started playing live shows, or right at the beginning. And by the time the Man of Straw material was written, we played, a whole bunch of shows, and seeing how what crowds responded to, and when the control that you could have over things, like if you put a halftime mosh part, 3/4 of the way through the song, what that did to the pit and the synergy, or the synergy. I just used that word. That's terrible. Just the motion and how everybody worked together in the pit, like, it was just cool. It was like almost like being a conductor of an orchestra, And so we often started considering that kind of stuff when we were writing the stuff in Man of Straw, just as far as, it sounds funny, but crowd control, to give them maximum entertainment and diversity of experience, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That makes sense. What's your favorite song off that album, would you say? I know it's kind of hard since, they're like...
Yeah, man. That is hard to say. I'd have to say it's either White Death or Winter, both for different reasons. Both of them are pretty epic, as far as their musical journeys. But yeah, both of those songs are just heavy as can be, and I dig them both.
Yeah, both are great. So then, after obviously Viking broke up, when did you decide to reform Viking?
That was pretty recently, late 2011, I think. I'm really bad with dates and stuff, but it was sometime in 2011. I don't remember when. But yeah, Matt and I have talked several times over the years, and we fielded stuff from record companies saying, hey, we'd gladly put out any demo material you had, or any new stuff, or any old live stuff, whatever it is. And there just doesn't exist a lot of that stuff. And we didn't have any motivation to write new material. And then in 2011, things like that were happening, and Matt and I were talking, where it was like, man, not only do I want to get back out there, but I also have at least a record left in me, probably a few.
Yeah. Didn't, I think, wasn't there a demo version of Do or Die release or something? I think I saw. Or or rough mixes, I can't remember. I think I saw it on the Viking store.
Of No Child Left Behind, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Early stuff that we were doing, that we were just recording demo stuff back and forth. We put a couple of those songs out just to see if people were interested, and they seemed to be interested, so that was cool. It was unfortunate that the record ended up taking so long, between the time we put those rough demo things out there and the finished product. It was that should have been measured in months, not years.
Yeah. Do you think this new album will get a vinyl issue?
Yeah, for sure. I actually still have to sign some papers for that, but yeah, I expect that we're going to have some international distribution of the new record in LP. We might have a few to sell on our own web store as well, but yeah, it will be available. It's not anything that I'm doing directly. So that's one less thing I have to worry about, which is awesome. So yeah, I would just stay tuned on our website to see when that gets announced, because that'll get announced fairly soon.
Okay, that's cool, because I know a lot of people are, obviously vinyl has a little bit come back in recent years, and people want to get vinyl copies as well as some people want to get CD and vinyl copies. I think it's
Right.
yeah.
Right.
You obviously you came from the era of vinyl. Do you still prefer vinyl, or do you like CDs more? Or?
It's I get asked this question so much now, and it's funny because I'm in professional audio, just in my everyday life, and have a studio and all that stuff, and so so I guess people ask me because of that stuff, but like, I completely understand why people said, came to the conclusion that vinyl sounds better, because in the early days, if you're familiar with the process of how vinyl is cut and how it has to be progressively EQ'd throughout the cut and stuff, like there's all kinds of stuff that happens for music to be on vinyl. And so in the old days, that's all we had was vinyl, right? So that's how albums were recorded, and that's how they were what we would call mastering now, basically. But that's how that stuff was done. And so when around 88, 89, whenever that was, when CDs, it's like, oh, now things are out on CD, they took all of those albums and put them on CD, and they all sounded like crap. I mean, to and every one of them, like those early CDs of older records sounded like crap. And so you'd listen to the difference. You'd listen to the CD, it was supposed to be digital clarity, and then you'd listen to the vinyl, and the vinyl sounded amazing, just exactly how it's supposed to sound. So people have got to to that, oh, well, CDs sound like crap and vinyl sounds amazing. But now records are recorded digital, like the whole thing's digital. They're listened to through monitors with the intent of it's going to be digital,
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, like when we released the record, some fans said, well, I'm going to wait for the vinyl because it'll sound better. It's like, no, I promise you it won't sound better, because that's like saying that a Xerox is more crisp than the original paper you Xerox,
Yeah.
We recorded this in the digital world, so it's the CD sounds exactly like we intended it to sound. Any difference that the vinyl sounds will sound different, but it's not better, because it wasn't part of the original. It's like looking at the Mona Lisa. It's like, oh, is there a green tint on that one? On that print, it's like, it's not what the artist intended. Maybe you like green better. Maybe you like the warm sound of vinyl, better, even though it wasn't intended to be that way. But as far as the artist or the producer or the engineer or whoever, they intended it to sound exactly like your CD sounds. That's the way they make records now. So
Yeah.
that's my whole 10-minute diatribe on vinyl. Although I love vinyl, I love the smell of the inside of a record. I love how big art is on LPs. I miss LPs. As a Kiss fan, I was all about the LPs. So
would you say that the vinyls of maybe the analog days are probably better? Like it was actually recorded on an analog studio. Do you think those would sound better vinyl wise?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like in that whole analog world that we intended everything. I mean, when we planned out song order, when I planned song order for the new record, I wasn't thinking side A and side B. I'm just thinking it's a CD. It's like songs 1 through 10. What order are they going to go in? But when you make a record, you're planning an experience for the listener. Side A is going to start with this, and it's going to go to this, and it's going to end with this. then side B is going to be a whole new adventure. We're going to start out real strong on side B. So you have this plan of it's like more of a multi-part thing.
Yeah.
And of course, just the whole analog process. It's like you have to play it right, or you have to play it again. And nowadays in Pro Tools, it's like, oh, it's okay if you didn't play it right. We got pitch shifting, and we can change the MIDI and triggers, and I do miss the old days in regards to that.
Yeah. Gear wise, what do you use?
Nowadays, working for a gear company, you'd think I'd have all kinds of, I'd be a gear nut, but I have very few guitars and I have very little gear. Typically, I'm playing Les Pauls now, almost exclusively. I'm playing Les Pauls, and then gear-wise, because we travel light, I'm not using my Randall heads when I tour now. I've got a rack that's got a power conditioner and a wireless and a Avid or DigiDesign 11 rack and a really lightweight, super big power amp. So if we bring our own cabinets, or if we just backline and say, when we get to the venue, make sure there's cabinets, I can wheel in my rig and plug it in and be good to go in a minute. And it's super light. I can carry it with one hand. It's pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool, actually. Then, I guess kind of I'm at my last question is, actually, if people want to get your new album, where can they get it? Because some people may not know.
Right. Oh, our website is VikingThrashMetal.com. Viking Thrash Metal, all one word. And there's a store on there that you can get our CDs and shirts and all kinds of cool stuff.
Awesome. Well, I want to say, thank you for your time. It's really cool to talk to you. Obviously, Viking, I remember hearing you guys, a few years ago. I remember thinking, man, I don't understand why this band isn't more known. It's really good, So it's really cool to finally talk to you.
Yeah, we stopped too early.
So, it's really cool to finally talk to you. It's all good, man.